Good morning, friends and fellow traders. This is Doug Campbell with Right Way Options, and this is the morning market prep video for July 19th, 2024. Well, I hope everyone had a great weekend. You're ready for a little bit of volatility in the market this week. I think one of the bigger things coming up is probably going to be the Friday speech from Jerome Powell. Highly anticipated. I'm expecting that it will provide some clues as to September rate cut. So we'll want to be keeping an eye on that on Friday. But before then, we've got a lot of things to get through here in this market this week. So let's first take a look at what happened overnight in Asian markets. Asian markets a little bit mixed last night. We had the Nikkei falling for the first time in about a week, down 1.77% or $674. South Korea was also a little bit weaker as they wait for their central bank decision, and I'm thinking that's Tuesday, if my thinking is correct. We have had Australian markets were just slightly positive. Hong Kong had the best of it, being up 0.80%, and Shanghai up $14.24. If we take a look at our European markets this morning, they're kind of mixed and modest. DAX and CAC are up just slightly by 0.13% and 0.32%, with the FTSE just slightly lower at 0.06%. Maybe just a little bit of uncertainty going into the beginning of this week as we wait for all those speakers at Jackson Hole. We have the Dow market just ever so slightly up, but it has been bouncing between green and red all morning since I got to my computer, and we've got the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ futures just slightly lower here. So a little bit of uncertainty going into the beginning of this week. If we take a look at oil this morning, we've got oil moving just a little bit lower here this morning, down 65 cents a barrel in oil futures at $76 a barrel, and Brent's down 74 cents at $78.94 a barrel. And we've got natural gas, UNG, trying to show a little bit of bullishness in here. And this is something we'll look at a little bit, but maybe a possible pattern starting to coming together here in natural gas. If we take a look at our precious metals, my goodness, gold had quite a week last week, spiking to new record highs. This morning it's a little bit lower, gap down early this morning and has been working its way back up, but as you can see, it is down this morning, and right now gold futures are down $10.50 an ounce. We have silver just slightly higher this morning. If we take a look at silver in here, it actually showing in SLV just a little tiny pullback. But another thing we'll be looking at here, a possible pattern that might be interesting as we move along. Copper being just a little tiny bit up this morning. Platinum and palladium moving lower, but again, there's some patterns here we might want to be paying attention to. If we take a look at cryptos this morning, the old crypto markets having a little bit of a struggle. We've got Bitcoin down this morning, $1,500 a coin, and Ether's down, Litecoin's down. So kind of a little bit of a bearish start to the week here on those cryptos, but at the same time, not a major surprise when we see that UUP is looking for a pullback here today, as our bond yields moving just slightly higher. We have the 2-year bonds at 4.05%. We've got the 10-year bonds at 3.87%, and the 30-year bonds coming in at 4.12%. Probably adding just a little bit of that uncertainty about an FOMC report this after the minutes on Wednesday, and then of course hearing from Jerome Powell on Friday. So what does all that mean for today? Well, how about we settle in? Let's buckle up. Let's get ready for the Monday edition of the Morning Market Prep video. Good morning once again, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. I very much appreciate it. Let's take a look at these charts and see if we can gain a little bit of information about how we want to approach the market for today and try to shake off that bias that we might have. And let's look at the charts for what they are, not for what we want them to be. Well, first off, as you can see, man, just an amazing rally here. This big gap here left behind in the diamonds chart, showing us that potential if the bears were to find some inspiration that we could pull back and fill that gap. But right now we're seeing quite a little bit of a a risk-on type environment. As a matter of fact, I read through the Goldman Sachs CTA report. They are suggesting that the CTAs will be buying full on for this week. And of course, part of the reason that is the case is the big corporate buybacks that are coming in, and the likelihood that they could continue into this week unless there's something else that comes up. So if those bulls were to find inspiration breaking through this resistance in here, then we would start looking straight up here for these resistance highs. That big black candle right there will be the next problem area for the chart. But if we can break through there, well, we're back up here testing all-time highs and then blue sky above in the diamonds. If the bears were to find inspiration, well, my suggestion would be we'd probably pull back into some of these areas here, testing some of these candles, see if they can hold. If those bears could push down through there, then I think we have that chance that we could fill that gap here in the chart. And that would raise maybe a little bit of fear in the market if that were to drop in there and fill the gap. And just remember, that's not odd that gaps might be filled. But we're certainly very extended away from our 50-day moving average now. We just ripped to the upside. We still have to deal with this downside trending pattern right here. Can we pop on through there? We did stop right there on Friday, and we'll see if we can get through that here this week. If we take a look at our SPY, well, SPY broke through that downtrend here in the chart, looking quite bullish. Once again, left a big gap behind here on that move up. Now, the question for today, can they break through here and start looking up here to these next levels of price resistance in the chart? I think there's every reason to believe they could, particularly if we're going to see those big tech corporate buybacks continue, and I think we will. So watch that carefully for that push up here to start testing some of these areas in the chart, and then even a little gap fill, and then of course right up there all-time highs. Certainly possible. We're really in a market that is reeling from implied volatility in the market, so be careful here. Whipsaws and things like that in this market could be substantial and painful, so don't just chase into the market. Make sure you're buying stocks that have low risk entries, because if they're already very extended, the whipsaws can be pretty damaging to an account. If we take a look to the bearish side here, if the bears were to get inspired, maybe push back down into here, then we'll check out that candle's low, and then we might fall into that gap. And if we did there, that would probably come in, well, pretty quickly, and could be a little bit extreme in the move, raising some concerns in the market. But you will want to note, coming back down here to test this area of support wouldn't be that big a surprise. Remember, we've got that trend break in here that could hold us, and if we take a look at our moving averages, that would just be a pullback back here to test the 50-day moving average. And honestly, that would be a very healthy thing for the market to do. Not sure we're going to do it, but that would be healthy for the market to do. If we take a look at our NASDAQ, QQQ, very strong here overall, pushing up into this price resistance we've been talking about. Hasn't been able to push through. Obviously, we got through the downtrend here. Now the question is, can we continue to extend, start pushing up through these levels here in the chart? back up into this bigger area of price resistance, and then of course there is a gap above up there that also needs to be potentially filled. If we take a look at the bearish side, well, pretty easy to see here as well. We probably start pushing back down to test the low side of these candles and then possibly filling this little gap here in the chart. Once again, I don't think I would worry too much about that if that were to occur. Honestly, I think that would be a very healthy thing for the market to do, just to kind of consolidate and rest in here. And that, if you'll notice, that could easily put together an inverted head and shoulders pattern if we were to rest back here just a little bit in the QQQ. If we take a look at our IWM, well, IWM did make it up through that major resistance area that goes back here to 2021 and 2022. So if the bulls can continue to find that inspiration, and I wonder if that might be a little bit difficult with a renewed interest in big tech, it could really pull a lot of money from the Russell. We'll have to watch that closely. But if we can continue that inspiration here to push on up, well, I'm going to look for these levels right up in here to be retested, filling that gap in the chart. And of course, if we can push on through there, we'll start looking for these levels up in here and see if we can retest this resistance level here in the chart. If the bears were to find inspiration, well, pretty easy to see. Break back down below these lows, we might retest this support area here in the chart, and then filling that gap as well, maybe even coming on back down to retest this upside trend. Once again, I do think that would be healthy for the market, but I rarely get what I want in this market because we're just so emotionally charged with these big whipsaws. If we take a look here, a pullback into this area would just be a retest of the 50, and that would be a very healthy thing for the market to do. If we take a look at our VIX continues to pull back dramatically, so no worries here. We have gone from all fear to no fear here in the market, back down around 14 handles here in the VIX. If the bulls continue to find that inspiration, you can see breaking this little area support here would push us back down into this little resistance area, support area, I should say, of the chart to see if we can test or hold those areas that we were looking at before that fear started to creep up. And then, of course, down below that, we could come all the way back to these lows if we continue to see that concern come out of the market. And I think with the massive amounts of money that are flowing into corporate buybacks, certainly possible that we could see these low prints again here in the VIX. If the bears, however, were to find something to be inspired of, then a push back up, we might test the upside part of this resistance in here, and at worst, maybe push up and test that trend break up here around the 20 handles. That would raise a little bit of fear and concern, but that might be just that little pullback to fill the gaps in the index charts. If we take a look at our some of our internals, our T20s, our T21-22 indicator, this is a bit of a problem for us, but not terrible. We are very elevated in the short term here in the market, and as you can see, if the bulls can find inspiration here, we still have that upside potential because we drifted back a little bit on Friday. A little rest, a little consolidation would probably be healthy here for the market, but we're a zoomy market. We just like zooming up and zooming down. So watch for that opportunity that we could pop on through here, retest these highs up here in the bearish reversal zone. If the bears were to find inspiration, well, we know we certainly have plenty of downside opportunity if they find reason for engagement. And who knows what that might be to motivate the market now. If we take a look at our T2108, T2108. The bulls are in control here, pushing this back up. You can see 52, almost 53% of the stocks back above their 40-day moving average. We have broken through this downtrend here in the chart, stretching to the upside. So next resistance levels are going to be up here around 60% of the stocks above their 40-day. Keep an eye on that. If the bears were to find some inspiration, we've got some good support levels down here as well to potentially hold. Of course, crossing back below 50% might raise a little bit of concern, but it may have to do that just to fill that big upside gap here in the indexes. If we take a look at our T2107, well, T2107 was a little bit on the flat side on Friday, kind of hooking over here, but you got to look at this as pretty darn bullish because we're back above 50%, 55% of the stocks above their 200-day. Now, keeping in mind, we've got quite a little bit of resistance in here, but there's room up here, maybe going up to the upper 60s. Possible if those bulls can get going. And if the bears were to find some kind of inspiration, support down here before we get down to 50%, and then right around at 50% of the stocks if the bears were to push, and we'd find some support maybe down in that area of the chart. We take a look at our T2101. This is our market breadth, and what we have seen is just this modest push back to the upside. Again, I think the estimate from Goldman Sachs is like 400 billion a day in potential flows from corporate buybacks alone. So kind of keep an eye on that. We might see this breadth continue to expand as we move. We're obviously out of that blackout period for the vast majority of companies, and that possibility that they could really start to influence the market if they continue to pour their own funds back into corporate buybacks. If we so bulls are holding up there. Let's take a look at our economic calendar here for today. And our economic calendar, not a whole lot going on here today. As you can see, we've got Waller speaking. We've got an e-commerce retail sales number, leading indicators here, and some bill auctions. Looking beyond that, as you can see, Tuesday, very light day with mostly just Fed talk of concern. Wednesday, our normal mortgage applications. We got Atlanta Fed business expectations, quarterly services survey, not market movers. We've got a petroleum status report. 20-year bond auction might be notable, and then of course those FOMC minutes coming on Wednesday. So it's not unlike, a little bit of choppy market, a little bit of resting market as we kind of wait for some of those data points. If we take a look at Thursday, we're going to start the Jackson Hole Symposium. There's going to be tons of stories coming out, whole bunch of sound bites as our financial bigwigs out there pontificate about the world and the market. If we take a look here, we're going to have jobless claims, Chicago National Fed activity. We've got PMI composite earnings, existing home sales, and natural gas report later on. There'll be a 30-year auction and a Fed survey. If we take a look, Jackson Hole will continue on Friday. This is when Jerome Powell is planning to speak. Probably the most notable thing of the week. It'll be in there with some new home sales and a Baker Hughes rig count. If we take a look at our earnings calendar, well, our earnings calendar is really lightening up, and I didn't put much on that calendar here for today. This morning, about the only thing that's particularly notable would be Estee Lauder. And you can see Estee Lauder maybe feeling a little bit of bearishness here this morning after reporting, moving just slightly lower. If we take a look at this afternoon, we have FN on that list that will be reporting, and probably one of the more notable, Palo Alto, will be reporting this afternoon. So keep an eye on that. Now, obviously, there are more reports than just these, but they're just not particularly notable. Little small caps, things like that are unlikely to move much. So let's take a look at a few stocks that could be setting up for today. But before we do that, everyone, if this is the first time you've seen these videos, if you could please do me that favor, and that would be click that subscribe button on YouTube, and also click that bell icon when it pops up so you'll be notified every time I post a video. And if you find these videos to be useful or helpful, do me that favor and click that thumbs up button, leave a brief comment. That helps the channel to continue to grow. Thank you so much for everyone who does take the time to do that. I truly, truly appreciate it. Remember, everyone, if you share these videos out on your social media feed, that helps a lot. And just a big shout out for those folks who continue to support the channel through the Buy Me a Coffee link that's just below the title of the video. Thank you so much, everyone. I truly appreciate it. Let's take a look at some stocks that could be setting up. And remember, everyone, these are not recommendations to buy or sell any security. You need to do your own due diligence. Be very, very careful in this market, and never, ever blindly follow anyone else's trade ideas. Well, first off, let's take a look at what's going on in some of those metals that we were talking about here this morning, and natural gas. First off, natural gas, as you can see here in this chart, we have the potential of an inverted head and shoulders pattern starting to form here on natural gas. Now, the big question at the moment is, can this hold this higher low? If this holds some support in here and we start seeing those buyers stepping up in here, that could be of interest. Keep an eye on UNG. You might also want to keep your eyes on BOIL. BOIL would be another opportunity to potentially trade that, so watch that carefully. If that holds in here on that price support, could be very interesting here for the market looking forward. Let's take a look at some of those precious metals in here. If you take a look at palladium, now palladium has been incredibly volatile, and I would certainly understand if you just wanted to stand aside on this a little bit. But you can also see that possibility here that we might form a bit of an inverted head and shoulders pattern in here on palladium. Nice pop up, little rest back, look for that opportunity for that to maybe pop up here on palladium. And if we look at stocks like Newmont Mining, also showing lots of bullishness here in Newmont, trying to push to the upside. We can take a look at Barrick Gold. Barrick Gold showing signs. KGC, very bullish charts, breaking downtrends here in the chart as gold and silver continue to move to the upside. And speaking of that, silver's another pattern that I would be paying attention to. Notice we had this little higher low that occurred right here. So we're moving up in a little tiny trend and trying to break through some resistance. If this can consolidate, rest, and hold in this area out toward that trend, I would look for that next opportunity then, maybe in silver, to come around. And I'm going to say the same thing when we take a look at things like Freeport-McMoRan. Freeport moving up here in the chart, breaking that little downtrend, as you can see here, trying to push into the next level of resistance. But we're getting this nice little resting, consolidating pattern in here. So if this can continue to rest and hold, look for that next opportunity for that to maybe start coming back around. And we can see even in Alcoa, aluminum starting to come back up here, trying to break that downtrend, moving in through, breaking through a little bit of price resistance in the chart. Rest or consolidate, and let's see if it can start pushing back on up. through that area of the chart. And remember, one of the things helping this out is the weakness of the dollar. As the dollar continues to weaken, look for commodity prices to move higher, and you can see we're looking for a little bit of a lower open here this morning on the dollar, and a very bearish pattern here in UUP. So keep a close eye on that, breaking this major support. Every reason to believe that that dollar could continue to sink if we're going to be cutting rates. So watch carefully here in the US dollar. Beyond that, let's take a look at a few other things. I've been keeping an eye on this Spotify, and it popped and dropped big here on Friday, or here in the pre-market. As you can see, it was trying to gap up and pulling back here this morning. So it's likely to still open in this range. Nice little tight consolidation in here, and I'm watching for that opportunity that might pop on through, breaking that resistance and pushing on up in the chart. And you'll notice if I pull this back, this is a weekly chart. Targets could be up in here around, that 370, 380 area in the chart. That's a pretty big upside potential in that chart, and then of course blue sky highs above that. So keep an eye on Spotify. Might want to also be watching this McDonald's trade pretty closely. You guys know I talked about this last week, and there's that pattern again. That nice little rest and consolidation, and we pushed right on through here in McDonald's. Now waiting for any kind of rest or pullback is what I'd be looking for. If this could consolidate back and rest, we want to hold on to trend here. Look for that next opportunity there for Mickey D's to make some upside moves. As you know, I've been keeping a pretty close eye here on IBM as well. There's that price alert right through here. We popped through, but really haven't got a lot of energy in that move yet. And I'm guessing it has something to do with this resistance up here in the chart. Price is just kind of respecting that, but keep an eye on this. If those bulls can continue to find inspiration here, there's every reason to believe this could stretch on higher as well. So I would keep a pretty close eye on IBM in that chart. Take a look at some of the defensive sector stocks. They continue to hold up quite well. Stocks like Coca-Cola showing lots of bullishness. Really slow moving here in this move back to the upside, but showing some strength. PepsiCo pulled back pretty hard, breaking some trend or sliding beyond the trend, but we're holding this price support. And what I like in here is the fact that we did try to pop, but we're kind of tightening this little resting pattern in here. We're tightening it up just a little bit. So keep an eye on that. If those bulls can find inspiration, look for that opportunity, maybe that could push on through here in the chart. Take a look at utilities. Utilities are usually not the place that you would expect in a very, very bullish market to be moving up, but we are still holding into quite bullish patterns here in the chart. So take a look at some of the stocks in that sector. Stocks like NEE showing that nice little consolidating pattern, potential upside move. Things like Southern Company, nice little resting consolidation out here to trend. Look for those opportunities for that to move on through to the upside. Other places in the market to be paying attention to, take a look at the financials. Now we have some financials doing very well, some of them not doing well, but as you can see, we're pushing back up into these resistance highs. We have zoomed straight back up here in those financials, and I would look for some opportunities in stocks like JP Morgan that could possibly pop that right on through. Maybe Goldman Sachs could pop right on through. I wouldn't have as much encouraged energy in things like WFC that still look like a potential short. BAC, although it's rallying back into a major resistance. I'd still be watching that for a potential pullback or possible short in BAC. So keep a close eye on those financials. In the energy sector, well, the energy sector has got a lot of confusion going on. We have the worries and concerns of demand pulling back in China, possibly even here in the United States. We also have that situation, the geopolitical situation, and the very real risk of an expanding war in the Middle East, raising concerns about those oil supplies. So a little bit of fight going on here in these oil stocks. You're going to have to be pretty picky on these charts. But if we take a look at stocks like ExxonMobil, holding up here, nice little consolidating range. Notice we're consolidating in this resistance and support area of the chart. If we can find that bullish inspiration in here on oil, then a push right through this area might be interesting to pay attention to. Take a look at stocks like FANG. FANG, possible inverted head and shoulders pattern. And I say just possible because we still have this downtrend here in the chart that we need to contend with. But watch that carefully. This can go either direction, and right now I would favor the downside move, that potential push on down here. But if you, and then only favor it because of the trend, if the bulls can find inspiration, we need to push through that, hold above that downtrend, then there may be opportunity there. Stocks like Occidental, maybe trying to hold a little bit of a pattern here as well with a higher low. Notice how we're consolidating nice and tight right there. If we can find that bullish energy that could pop us through, that might be somewhat interesting to be paying attention to. So with that, everyone, I want to wish you all a fantastic day. Thanks so much for being here this morning. Truly appreciate it. And I'll see you right back here bright and early Tuesday morning. Have a wonderful day, everyone.